Hello and welcome back to The Spotter. Today we are joined by a special guest and somewhat a good friend, I suppose I could call you.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, I suppose so. Harry, we have been friends for a very long time, and then you decided to leave the gym we're at now and then come back into my life again.
I left multiple times, actually. I've dumped you multiple times, and I've returned like a toxic girlfriend.
I've just taken you back because obviously that says more about me, maybe. I don't know.
Have you taken me back, or have I forced myself back?
Probably forced, yeah. But honestly, we're fine. There's no issues in relationship.
I promise, help.
Yeah. Harry, thanks for coming on. You know, the podcast is driven by my want to get, people talking, and it starts with me. You know, we're 11 episodes in now. Such an awkward number it's not. We can't call it a special episode 11, but you're in the mix now. You're number 4. Okay, I only value 4th in. So
yeah, I'm going to remember that. By the way, when you have a problem in life, I'm going to say, yeah, maybe even 4 episodes time. I'll think about it.
So the podcast obviously is I think we're doing better now. People are listening, and I think the mission, the message is getting out there, and I can only hope it continues to do so. So I appreciate you coming on. This is hopefully going to be a good conversation between, honestly, just two good friends, and we can just talk and see where it goes. But you've been through a lot in life. I know that. And again, this should be, as it is with my other guests and myself as well, it's raw, it's unfiltered. I don't cut anything out unless there's a technical issue, because I want it to just flow. I want this to be almost like a snapshot of how we would talk, without cameras. And I think that's what people come to the podcast for. And that's what I'm hoping for. You know, people can take away from these and be like, do you know what? That sparked something in my head, in my brain. I'm going to go and message this person. I want to have a conversation with this person. Now, actually, I feel less alone now because of Jake and Harry talking about said subject. That for me is just, that's the goal. That's where I know I've done what I set out to do. So I really do appreciate you coming on. So
honestly, it's a pleasure. I've said to you many times before that I think this has legs to be something, and I feel privileged to be a part of it in some capacity. And if there's ever an opportunity to help you as a friend or kind of spread a good message, which is something I obviously try and do with my brand, tag me in. I think you're doing good things, and I think this is something that's been missing in the space for a long time. And like I said, I'm just happy to be here. So thank you.
You're on the mission now to helping this get to being the number 1 mental health podcast out there.
It is. In my heart.
Yeah, let's just say that. It is just manifestation, if it's even a thing. Come on. So let's take it back. We've been friends now for, it's probably 8 years, 7 years, something like that.
When did you join the gym joint?
Plug number 1 there.
We train at the gym joint in the world, just saying.
It is. So I joined back in, to be precise, it was June 2018, I think.
We would have started talking then, because I joined end of 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
So we would have started talking around when you popped in.
Yeah.
There you go. So a long time.
I don't remember seeing. Basically, I did 2 day passes, and that was enough for me to be like, yeah, this is the place for me. And I remember just it being a really pretty raw, nasty environment, not dirty.
Back in the day, it used to be. Yeah.
It was obviously there was less people in there than there is now, and it was. I walked in, I need a bit of this. This is like the energy I want to be around.
Very dark in there.
Yeah, and so I remember we got chatting back in the day. Again, seamless interactions. Thought you were a bell end. No, I'm joking.
Still do.
And ever since then, I know you've been, at different gyms. You've come back, but we've always maintained a very good relationship. I've always checked in on each other, and I know what you've been through in life. You know what I've been through and what's led me to where I am today. So we've got that shared knowledge of each other's journey, per se.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's more to the fact that you just train. You've got your own brand as well. So do you want to just tell us about that, and obviously what led you to coming up with your own brand? Plug number 2. Yeah.
Plug number 2. So obviously brand being TFNL. It's a weird one because I guess through the years in fitness, I kind of never really felt like I was fitting in much. There was a massive, at the time, not so much now, kind of expectation of everyone, if you wanted to be in fitness, had to look the same way. If you know fitness from 2015, 10 years ago, everyone looked the same. Genuinely lean year round, certain appearance, and it was just a kind of copy and paste. And at the time, I kind of recently got into powerlifting, and I was like, I don't really want to look like that. I kind of do hold a bit more body fat. I do look like a bit of a blob, to be honest with you, still do. And we kind of started questioning industry norms slightly. But the brunt of it really came down to I made at the time a really great group of friends at the gym that I had joined at previously prior to Gym Joint. And we just used to mock each other for being for Never Lean. And then we became Team for Never Lean, which started actually as a WhatsApp group chat.
Yeah.
Before then turning into a channel which had a bit more of an underlying message surrounding altering kind of expectations and norms in the industry. And then a lot of it actually stemmed from, there was a channel back in the day called Maththetics.
Okay.
Much smaller powerlifting channel based in New Mexico. Obviously, sadly, one of the founders, who's quite a young guy as well, mid-30s, I think he passed about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And I always wanted to start a YouTube channel. And watching them, I used to love their videos. I used to get excited for every upload. They were like...
I've never heard of it, honestly.
They've kind of gone offline because obviously the passing, and then they split. They kind of had a bit of a falling out at the time. I think they rectified that, but prior to things going obviously south. I just used to just get excited to watch their videos. They were just strong guys, just loved training together in a cool gym. And I was like, I want to do that. Started doing that. That kind of shifted into educational content. And then I started seeing people start sending me videos saying, what's your opinion on this? And it kind of came to the fact that there's so much I hope you don't mind me saying the word crap.
I've just called you a bell end, mate. So
yeah, that's I guess a kind term, I'd say. I'd say that's flirting, if you ask me.
Really?
Yeah, well, it depends. There's so much crap online. I was just so sick of people just adopting wrong information or just useless crap as norm. And there's so many people being like, wow, I'm not seeing results. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm the problem. You're not the problem, actually. The problem is the fact that they're posting utter shit that is firstly factually incorrect, and secondly is only marketed to get views to make you feel like you're the problem, so you'll then go to them for coaching for them to fix your problems. You were never the problem to begin with. They're the problem. And then it kind of stemmed from taking the piss and having a laugh in the gym and kind of educating people about why I'm training the way I'm training, to educating people about actually, this isn't true. This doesn't need to be that complicated. Actually try this. And then suddenly people started watching it. It was fantastic. And it started making moves. And obviously that started developing, built a bit of a community, which every day I'm thankful to have. Like I've said this to, probably not verbally online, but this sounds really dramatic. I don't mean for it to sound really dramatic, but if it weren't for TFNL having actually developed somewhere and kind of given me a career path, I probably wouldn't be here right now, because a lot of factors, it gave me a real sense of purpose that I was really missing. And I think that led to a lot of complications I had earlier on in life. Yeah. And then it came to, wow, if people can appreciate education, maybe I could coach people. I qualified as a PT 12 years ago when I was 19 or something. Obviously did it in person, but I never even considered it online. And like with yourself, future online coach sensation, I put it off for so long because I didn't feel good enough. Yeah. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go online. COVID hit, got out of that. I was like, I'm going to shift everything online. And it just went from there. It gradually progressed, and it turned from a YouTube channel into YouTube channel to coaching to guides and programs, and just trying to make things better online.
So you've now built up your own ecosystem of all these little services. Because I guess, the YouTube is a service, you're providing that for people, but there is that. So honestly, go and check out his YouTube channel. The brand's YouTube channel it's comedic takes as well, and a lot of it's not ultra serious.
I'm trying to be a bit more. I find it quite hard actually. I'm trying to be a bit more authentic, because obviously, in person, I'm a bit of a knob. I'm actually just a bit of a knob. But come on. But then online, it's really hard to kind of display personality when you're talking to a camera. Obviously better than anyone, when you speak to a camera that doesn't give you anything back, I can't take the piss out of the camera. Take the piss out of you. I can't take the piss out of the camera. So I'm trying to be a bit more authentic with it, but it's proven to be quite hard because the camera doesn't fight back. If I'm going to roast the camera, I want the camera to roast me back, and then we have a bit of laugh back. Yeah, but it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, but we'll get there slowly.
No, you will. It's great to see, and you've touched on something there that I will come back to at some point. But I kind of wanted to get, you've kind of gone onto it about that sense of, it's given you purpose. And I imagine sort of when you said that, I thought to myself, well, maybe you feel like, and ultimately you won't know every subscriber that, jumps on the channel, but you feel like there's a sense of family that you've built almost,
absolutely,
with your brand. And that's great. I think that, perks to you're talking about being authentic on camera, but you have been authentic in building the brand.
Trying to be.
Yeah. And people obviously gravitate towards that. So I think you're doing a great job, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
No, honestly, it's good to see. I think that, you know, we're talking about some serious subjects there in the sense of not wanting to be here. You know, or not probably wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for that. So,
without a doubt.
Now, there's a lot of depth to you that we won't be able to get out in one episode. So this is my plea.
Be back. Don't
please come on multiple times. We've got so much to talk about, honestly. I think actually, I think like a Q&A episode with us would be very good because we've got a lot of experience. Yeah. So
we have a lot of similarities as well. We've experienced similar things, but maybe slightly similar things, but slightly different avenues of those things.
100%. And equally, where I've touched upon my background, you know, my parentage and what's led me to where I am today, especially what led me to doing the podcast. Yeah. That's not everything. That's just the shaving. It's literally just touching the surface. And, you know, I remember I went to my mum and said, are you happy for me to talk about these elements on the podcast? I'm not just going to jump on and talk about your life. And she's like, absolutely. And
that's good of her. I respect that a lot.
Yeah, because she, you know, acknowledges it's been her and me for a long time. So that is a big part of me, and it has molded me to who I am today. So I'd be doing an injustice if I didn't mention that at some point.
Well, I think, obviously, I know you've gone through a lot throughout life. I know your relationship with, obviously, your dad previously and your mum has been quite troublesome, quite turbulent at times. But I've said this to you 1,000 times. I'll say it again on the podcast, is I use you and a couple of examples as really good examples of what a man should be, in my eyes. And I've spoken to you about this in person, but I feel like it deserves to be said. Testament to your parents for helping turn you into the man you are. Also testament to you for becoming who you are, because of all the adversity that you faced and all the troublesome times you've gone through. It's very easy to go one of two ways. You either fall into the trap of just kind of spiraling and probably regressing in life, or you say, you know what, I need to step up now. You've gone that way. You've stepped up. And again, when I contemplate my life and I think about what I can do better as a man or as a human in general, actually, I genuinely refer to you as an example. I look at you and say, what would Jake do? What would Soren, for example, do? Soren's obviously a friend of ours, my coach
number 3.
Well. Yeah, plug number 3. Shout Soren. I look at you two primarily as good examples of what would they do in this situation, because whatever they do, it is something I should follow based on just your moral compass and how you hold yourself as men. So again, testament to you. You've been through a lot, but you've come out the other side probably a better person than you would have if you hadn't gone through so much.
I appreciate that. You've made me, I'm trying not to let it show, but you made me well up. And I was like...
Just being honest with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do think that whilst it's been a troublesome upbringing, and I would never... I wouldn't even change it because I wouldn't be the person I am today.
You're a great dude.
Honestly, I appreciate that. And same to you. And
thank you.
Let's flip it on its head now. Stop talking about me. I'm
trying to butter you up now, so you bring me back.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you back. So let's switch it on to you now. And you know, we've spoken about your brand and where that is, I suppose, today, and what led you to that point. Now, you spoke about that almost. If that wasn't there, well, you might not be here. So, who is Harry? Now, that's a very loaded question. It's going to have there's a lot of answers to that. It could change daily.
It does. Trust me, it does.
Trust me, same here. Now, so if you're taking us back to sort of your upbringing and what's led you to where you are today, could you delve into that? Like, what was childhood like? What was your parentage like? What was your upbringing like?
I guess it's always a tricky one in this sense because I'm really bad at answering questions that lack like specificity in a sense. That's not a digger thing. That's my flaw. That's my
fair
flaw.
Enough.
I guess childhood is it's hard because it's almost where do you begin? I think obviously I could tell you 1,000 things. My parents divorced when I was 6. I found that particularly difficult. Everyone always says at the time, you're too young to understand what was going on. Bullshit. I cried nearly every single day for genuine years after the divorce because I thought my mum and dad didn't love each other anymore. And then maybe they stopped loving me as well. And obviously I didn't see my dad as much. My dad, not to the extent your dad has gone through. My dad has a troublesome relationship with alcohol. I'd say he'd never admit it. And if he ever heard me say that, he'd deny it through his teeth. But he has what I believe to be a very troublesome relationship with alcohol. and I would see him, I think, every other weekend. I've gone from seeing my dad, the kind of man at the time that I just wanted to impress and wanted to be proud of me every day, to now see him every other weekend. And I think if I reflect on what my childhood looked like, bless my mum, she did her best, genuinely. And I held a lot of resentment to her through a few things in childhood I went through. But as I get older, I look back and say, you know what? She tried. Like, basically from 6 years old, she's a single mum of two kids, myself and my sister. And she's thrown in a bit of a shitter. Financial instability, some troublesome times with money growing up, troublesome times with some pretty bad boyfriends, I'd say. But then I have a lot of memories of my dad where he wasn't very present. I had the conversation with my mum about this the other day, because we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but I haven't spoken to my dad since March 4th, 2022, I believe, so 3.5 years. And my mum's exact words, I had to justify why that is, and this goes back to childhood, is my dad, in her words, is probably the most selfish man she's ever met. Okay. And that very much reflects, I'm not trying to badmouth my dad here, because I'm old enough to say, despite us not having a relationship, he did some incredible things for me as a dad. Yeah. But a lot of my memories of him, they don't really exist, in the sense that he wasn't as present as I would have liked a dad to be. I have most of my, I guess, clearest memories are me watching him commit acts of violence, to be honest with you. Be that getting in fights with people. In fairness to him, I'll give him credit this. Whenever I saw him getting in a bit of a scrappino in public, I only remember him doing so to defend somebody else. Okay. He never did it to be an arsehole. It was probably in front of his friends showing off, but it was always to defend somebody. But I think childhood was a lot of bouncing around. Mum trying her best, dad with girlfriend, toxic relationship, just kind of pushing me in. I felt at the time pushing me into a direction that I never wanted to go down. He always said to me, "Harry, you're going to be an England rugby player. You're going to be this." I don't play rugby. I tried it once. I was shocking. Honestly, embarrassingly bad. I threw the ball the wrong way. Then I was like, you know, I'll probably call my career here. Yeah. And then we moved around a bit. Before the divorce, we moved up to Birmingham. Actually, funny enough, we were there for a year. I actually didn't know about this till much later on in life. We moved around to get away from my dad's affairs, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My dad was having a few affairs. His relationship with women is very troublesome. We moved up to Birmingham to escape those. He then had more affairs in Birmingham. My mum caught him with I think, his colleague at a bar. He got a woman pregnant and had to go get an abortion on my mum's birthday. Like, there was quite a few events. And then my mum eventually said, "I'm not doing this shit anymore." And then we moved back down south. I said Birmingham, as if it's not, I guess it's Midlands.
It is Midlands, yeah.
And then they split, they separated. And it is a bit of a weird one, because my mum always pushed the idea of almost resentment to dad, understandably so. My dad was like, "Oh, me and your mum are best friends." It's like, I don't think my mum likes you, actually.
Yeah.
So I guess childhood was hard to remember, but maybe a lot of absent times. Although, yeah, I guess it's just troublesome relationships, we'll say.
No, I appreciate, in terms of the question I asked, I guess that's what I meant. It was loaded, and it wasn't very specific, so I understand it's quite hard to answer that, because it could be, well, it was this, but do you want that answer? It's more to just spur on, just to get a bit more of an insight, and that's exactly, obviously I know some of this, but I don't know all of this, because we don't always, and this is why sometimes things like this are good, because it's actually an opportunity for you and me to talk, and hopefully, unearth things that are good to get out there in the air, because there's going to be people that have gone through very similar situations. I mean, I've gone through pretty much, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but mum and dad had already divorced by the time, I think by the time I was born. And because my dad wasn't, from what I've been told, and again, you've got to take almost like family's perceptions of people with a pinch of salt, because on one side, you're going to have people that be like, he was this, that, and the other. And on the other side, it's like, well, actually, maybe a misunderstood person. But yeah, similar with you. My dad was here, there, and everywhere. He was absent so many times in my life. But what you had was that situation of a bipolar mother and an alcoholic father, and that's just not.
Combo.
It's just not a good combo. Like when I say it out loud now, I understand it's just not good. The combination of the two of them didn't work. But again, I think you alluded to your dad saying that your mum and him were best friends, and you were like, hold on, I don't think that's the
Okay,
case.
it's true
I
at
think
all.
your story is different to mine, but mum and dad's, my side, they were madly in love with each other, but they were also aware that they just didn't work on a normal day to day. But I think he played on the fact sometimes, sadly, that she had bipolar, because there was a lot of like emotional manipulation there.
Yeah.
To almost alter, like when she was in her high mania stages and ultra low stages, like to try and flip how she was feeling or maybe alter decisions. But yeah, I can't I can't link to say that he was having affairs and things like that. I don't know. I don't know that side of things. I was never aware of that. But again, for you on that side, obviously growing up with that, I guess that kind of warps your perception of life a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Let me turn my fan down quickly because
That's fine.
I got hot. So it's a
It's
tricky
really
one.
hot in the UK
It's
at the minute.
bloody warm.
Yeah.
It is a tricky one because a lot of the affairs in that situation I wasn't really made aware of until much later on in life. I mean, like my 20s, which almost angered me because I felt like I had a right to know why my parents actually divorced. They divorced at 6 years old, and they didn't tell me the truth for 10 plus years later, 20 years later. And that angered me a lot. But to us, a lot of the negative experiences, I'll say, with my dad stem from kind of more what I kind of saw.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this a couple of times, actually, and again, I'll be very blunt about this. I can't remember the exact age. I think I was either like 11 or 12 or something. I remember I was at my dad's house, my dad's girlfriend's house. Lovely person. Her and I got on really well. I actually used to say to her, like, if I saw her like a second mum. Like, we got on so well. She was cool. She was funny. We had a great laugh. She was great with kids. Obviously, I was quite young, and she had a younger son who had a lot of learning difficulties. Bless him. And him and I were like this. We were very close. I remember one time, my dad had a very explosive temper, and he had a very, to be blunt, quite an intimidating presence, quite a dominant presence. He's quite a tall dude. He used to be a rugby player. Very deep voice when he lost his temper, to the point where you were like, "Oh, this is scary." And I remember him and her, probably fueled by alcohol. A lot of my dad's shortcomings were fueled by alcohol. They got in a massive argument, and I didn't really know what to do. I'm a young kid. I dragged her son. I'll keep his name off this for obvious reasons. I dragged him upstairs and said, let's sit in the bedroom. We shared a bedroom whenever I went to stay. Let's sit in the bedroom. Let's just chill. Let's just chill. Then I remember it went quiet, and then I was like, oh, that's quiet. That's a bit weird. They were just arguing 2 seconds ago. Now it's quiet. And so I walked downstairs. I remember walking down the stairs of this kind of like, it was like a second lounge where the stairs were this hallway, had a random sofa, went to the right into the kitchen, and to the right by the front door, my dad had his now ex-girlfriend, obviously, up against the wall with both of his hands around her neck, and she was blue in the face. So it was pretty obvious to see what was going on there. Like, he was, when I say you see rage in someone's eyes, you know what's happening. And he was, like I said, strangling her very, very aggressively. This wasn't even if there's such a way, a joking strangle, this was an aggressive strangle, taking her down with both hands around her throat. And obviously, he's a big guy. I didn't really know what to do in that moment. So the only thing I saw to do was I grabbed a knife and I tried to stab him, because he's much bigger than me. Even to recent days, I was always been quite intimidated by my dad and his physical presence. So it's the only thing you can do when you're young. Is I held a knife to him, tried to stab, I missed, and eventually forced him out the house. He left. I stayed there for the night. My mum picked me up the next day. And sadly, that kind of, I guess, intoxicated violence wasn't uncommon. I mentioned to you before, I saw him getting many a scrap with a man over the years, and even as recent as 10 years ago. It was exactly 10 years ago last weekend.
Okay.
Henley Regatta. I remember I used to work at Waitrose, and I remember we've spoken about this before, but I was just at Waitrose. Henley Regatta weekend. Someone's always a knobhead. There's always someone being a sausage. A shed load of police go past, and I was like, that's what's happened here. Well, this is going to be a story for tomorrow. And then about half an hour passes. I get a call from my manager saying, "Harry, can you come upstairs to the office, please?" And I'm thinking, shit, what have I been caught doing? Because to be frank with you, I was an arsehole. When I was working at Waitrose, I take like, they have like broken eggs, and they're like, what, throw them in the bin. I'd make art against the wall above the bin, make willies out of eggs by smashing them. All this. I was a knob.
So mature at a young age.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, look at me at 21 years old making willies out of egg yolk against the wall above a bin. And then he said, "It's your sister. She's on the phone." I was like, "Oh, no one's ever called me at work. It's weird. I'm like, what's going on?" And she's bawling her eyes out. She's screaming down the phone saying, "Harry, you need to get to Dad's. You need to get to Dad's." And he lived right near me. He lived right near Waitrose, I should say, in Henley, just down the road. And I was like, okay. Well, immediately I'm like, the dogs. Something's happened to the dogs, because he had a staffy and a pug, and I love dogs. And I was like, something's happened. I need to go save the dogs. So I said to my manager, I said, "Look, I'm really sorry to do this, but do you mind if I go? Something's happened. I don't know what's going on. I'm a bit confused, to be honest with you." He said, "Don't go, be gone," sort of thing. So I bolted, drove my car, shot there straight away. And the whole cul-de-sac had been closed off. And I was like, what is going on? And I remember as I tried to get into the cul-de-sac, it was taped off. And they said, "You can't come in." I said, "No, I can come in. That's my dad's house. Like, he lives there. So by default, I have a right to be at my dad's house." And then as he said that, his wife, he's married now, his wife, who he had only married, I want to say 3 months prior, was getting wheeled out of the house on a stretcher, caked in blood. I mean, like, blood all over her face, back of the head. And she was crying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I'm like, why are you saying what's happened? It's all well and good telling me sorry, but what's happened? Then the dog is covered in blood as well. I was like, I knew it. The dog's hurt. What's happened to the dog? And then I said, "Where's my dad?" And they're like, "He's been arrested." I said, "Well, what's happened?" To this day, he's never told us. Obviously I don't speak to him, but even when we did speak to him, we went to many a therapy session to discuss. He's a compulsive liar. And if he won't hear this, if he hears this, he knows it's true. He is a compulsive liar, and he can never tell us the truth. He's told me about 15 different stories that don't add up. They're the things that they cannot all be true at once. It doesn't work in this universe. So what we think had happened is, I don't know how, but they'd obviously got in a heated, intoxicated argument, and it seems like he had smashed her head through the microwave glass, split the back of her head open. She's fallen to the floor because there was a pool of blood, like a big puddle of blood. And the neighbours then say that they came over. They're the ones who called the police. They heard the screaming, the shouting, all the smashing and the whatever it was. Dad storms out covered in blood, obviously her blood. And he looks at the neighbours and he says, "If you go in there, you're next."
Wow.
Storms off. They walk in, they find his wife unconscious on the floor in a puddle of blood. And I think the dog had legged it out, caked in blood as well or something. And then he got arrested. And I remember sitting there in the lounge where this big puddle of blood was, and my sister was now in the process of cleaning up. And I was just kind of processing. I was like, what's happened? I'm very confused.
Yeah.
And I kind of went to process what my dad must be feeling in this time. Obviously, I know he'd done wrong. I'm not going to deny he did wrong. I still hold a lot of resentment and anger towards him. And this is actually relevant to something I'll bring up later. But I sent him a message because I knew he'd been arrested at this point. He was in the cell. I just said, "I love you, Dad." That's it. I said, "I love you, Dad." Because I know that he's probably getting messages from family, from friends. "What have you done? You're this, you're that." Hurley abuse at him. I said, "You know what? He's probably in a very dark place right now. He's very scared. I'm just going to tell him I love him." That's it. I just remember a couple of days later, and I can't really remember what happened from there, but we never got the honesty from him. We never got the true story. She says, "I can't remember." He says these 15 things happened, which it just doesn't add up. And if you heard his excuses, you'd be like, that's like telling me you're hot and you're cold at the same time. You can't be both. What are you, sort of thing? Yeah, and it's that became, I think that was quite almost seemingly a common occurrence with my dad, is problems with women, problems with alcohol, and problems with his temper. And they questioned whether he was maybe bipolar for a while, because it was so high and then it was so low. Or he maybe had a personality disorder. This, when I was kind of going through that diagnosis process of personality disorders, I reflected on, they teach us what they are and say, look, this is what, does this sound familiar? So it actually does sound familiar. And some of them I can link to myself. Other times I say, that's my dad. That is actually my dad. So if I can externally say, I think, I'm not a therapist by any means, I'm not a doctor, but I would confidently say that he has what they deem to be a cluster B personality disorder, which falls into histrionic, antisocial, narcissistic, or borderline personality disorder. He's very narcissistic,
Yeah.
He's very histrionic, which is horrendous relations with women, quite antisocial, probably an element of borderline as well. And it's just, if you were to witness his behaviors growing up, you'd be like, this is you. Like, not so much, but obviously I have many traits myself. Obviously, social learning theory, you learn from what you see. But I look at some of these things, I say, that's dad. That's dad.
This is the thing. I don't think until we get older, we truly appreciate how much of our childhood does actually stay with us and forge the lifestyle that we live. As much as we may want to ignore it, I've wanted to ignore that, and the podcast has made me realise that. Realise that actually you can't. Yeah, you can't. And actually, a lot of what I glorified my dad, even though he was, again, an alcoholic, someone that shied away from work a lot of the time. I used to think it was, granted, and I don't like to talk ill of him because, he's no longer here.
Of course.
But he did always, he prided himself on this, and he would always say to me, like, between us, we always talk open and honest with each other. There's no lies. Ironically, he was a compulsive liar as well.
Exactly the same.
It's actually, I'm going to say this from a position of I can, because I've lived it, and I'm the son of an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's a trait of alcoholics, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It may not be all of them. And recovering, it might not be that case, but for people in it, and, if there's people out there that can attest to that, or, either agree, disagree, whatever, I really do think that he believed his own world that he'd crafted in his head. All of these things that he was saying, he was like, no, this is true. And it was almost if you don't believe it, you're the problem. And it made me feel like crap.
It's gaslighting.
That's what it is. And I'd feel ashamed. I'd be like, oh, my dad thinks that I hate him. He thinks that I think he's a liar. Oh no, don't worry, Dad, it's fine. I'd flip it. That's where a lot of my whole people pleasing traits stem from, because I'd be like, oh no, it's all right. We'll do this. No, it's all right, son. Don't worry about it now. And it was, again, the emotional manipulation.
And you feel like crap.
Yeah. And so I can see that you touched on the personality disorder. So did that link to you in that sense? Then have you been through a similar process?
It's a tricky one, because I didn't actually know this. This is just quite funny, I thought, is I was technically diagnosed with BPD, so borderline personality disorder, in, I want to say 2016, because it was just after shortly after, I'd say about 6 months after, maybe less, after I started antidepressant medication, because I had a bit of a rough time with an ex-girlfriend at the time, and it led to a very nasty spiral, and I just plummeted. I just went into the abyss. That relationship inevitably ended. Obviously, I then later got into a new relationship with a person who I thought had BPD. I didn't know this, but when I speak about her in therapy, they were like, sounds like BPD. And then we were talking about my behaviors and things like that, and they said, you ever thought that maybe you've also got BPD? I was like, I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. And then they explained it, never pondered it, and then that got put on my record as a diagnosis, which I disagree with at the time. And then fast forward many years, it was another ex-girlfriend. I want to say December 2022. I used to have, I guess, emotional dysregulation episodes when I was growing up, where it would just be 0 to 100, like boom, 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 boom. My emotions were all over the place. Happy, intense anger, intense, like, hysteric sadness, like boom, 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 like going wild. And then I remember my partner at the time said to me, she's like, Harry, I've been, obviously we live together now. I've really been thinking, I've been doing the research. I look at BPD and borderline personality disorder, and it is you to a T. There's nothing there that I disagree with. And I was like, oh shit, actually, maybe there's something there. So I went into therapy, and then my therapist at the time was like, yeah, Harry, you've got BPD, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. And it's a weird one, because even now, obviously, I've got a new therapist who I'm genuinely exceptionally thankful to have. Like, she's changed the game for me. I had a long relationship with therapy since 31 now, since I think I started therapy when I was 6, maybe even earlier. Yeah. I think actually earlier due to some anger issues when I was growing up. And she's saved me in many kind of, I guess, facets of the meaning. And it's hard, because on paper, yes, I am diagnosed with BPD, but it's hard to definitively state that this is what the problem is, because there are a lot of things that I wish were investigated when I was growing up that were completely disregarded. My mum, bless her, and my family was, as I was growing up, they were saying, or they were told that they thought I was autistic. In my mum's world, if you don't get diagnosed, you don't have a problem. My mum is the kind of person that if she got a terminal illness, she just wouldn't go to the doctor, because if she doesn't go to the doctor, she's not really ill.
Doesn't exist, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when my therapist brought up saying, Harry, like, I think, yes, we need to consider, I think BPD is definitely present, and that is an issue, then you do have BPD, or you may well have BPD. I don't think that's the whole story. I think you're also autistic, which is very common. BPD, ADHD, and autism go into like a Venn diagram where they share a lot of similarities. And she was like, you know what, we think you sit in the kind of between the autism and the BPD. Got taken to assessment center. They said, yeah, BPD, definitely autistic as well. So I had that full assessment. I, obviously being stubborn and grumpy at the time, I obviously refuted that and said, I think you need to look for a new job because you're wrong.
Really?
I don't think they're wrong, actually. And then when I mentioned it to my mum, I said, oh, mum, they think I'm autistic. She goes, oh, we already knew that. I was like, I didn't. I'm, 30 years older this time. I was like, I didn't know this. And she's like, oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. Why does it matter? I was like, actually, it kind of does matter because it explains things. I went through a life growing up, behaving a way that was just different to people. And it left me feeling very isolated and very, like I didn't fit in, I didn't belong, because my thought process, my behaviors, and just how I perceived the world was different. You get 10 people in the room, they say, that car's blue. And I'm like, it's orange. I swear it's orange. And then I felt like the problem. But if she would have said growing up, oh, by the way, this is why you're like that, I would finally have been able to explain so many behaviors I was never able to explain, that left me with a lot of sadness and a lot of kind of ill feeling.
I think it's, no, I was going to say, is you actually just touched upon it. It was more the case of, it's not, oh, it doesn't matter. It's, no, it does, to the point of it allows me to understand myself more. It's not, granted, I don't like the fact that people are held to labels, but
especially in this modern society, I think labels are too dominant.
Yes, yeah, I agree, and I don't think we should allow it to define us. You know, we are all unique in many ways, and we should be proud of that. But what I do agree with is that you want to know, just even if it's behind the scenes, not to go, to go out there and be like, I am. It's so you can go out there and be like, I understand why I see the world this way. I understand why that car is orange and not so and so in my eyes. I understand why I connect with people in different ways. And I can also maybe link it back to my childhood that's maybe got me to this point. Maybe some of the things that I have been through have changed my perception of the world as well. And maybe that ties in with it. You don't know. But I don't like that statement of it doesn't matter.
It's hard because there are so many aspects or elements of life where genuinely it left me leaving situations feeling like I was a failure, I had done something wrong, when in reality I just processed the world slightly differently. And even small things like I have a lot of OCD traits. I was diagnosed with OCD as well years ago, and there are certain things where I get like hyper fixated on things, but if I knew what that was, I wouldn't have thought I was going crazy. And to the point where even things like the anxiety, when I had intense anxiety growing up, all of that could have been due to maybe underlying BPD that wasn't diagnosed, autism that wasn't diagnosed, whatever it may have been. But if they just told me that, I would have known that, I wouldn't have spent ages searching for, why do I feel so scared of the world? Why do I throw up before social events? Why do I do all these things? And so much of my teenage years were missed because I was so scared of the world outside of my house. But if I found out why I was scared, I wouldn't have spent so long looking in the wrong direction or looking in the wrong place. And a lot of resentment came from that. And I think even small things, like it would have explained my poor relationship with substances. Obviously, I've spoken to you about this before, about the addiction and whatnot, or addictions, I should say. And again, it's just, to them or to someone who it doesn't directly impact, it doesn't matter. So you may say to me, saying, oh, Harry, I'm autistic. Say, why does it matter? It doesn't matter to me because it's not my life, but it does matter to you because you're the one who has to deal with the behaviors. You're the one who has to live and think the way you think and live. And just even understanding just doesn't necessarily change things. It just helps explain things. And sometimes that's all you need, is an explanation.
Agreed. And again, it can come through conversation. It can come through a diagnostics like that, or it can be, again, just you doing your own research. But I think if we had more clarity on certain things in those situations, it would probably allow you to maybe accept yourself a bit more as
Yeah,
well? Like maybe there
I
was
think
those
so.
situations where you potentially like, I'm confused about the way I am. Like, why is this the case?
Well, it's even small things like not even that long ago, 2 years ago, if you asked me the question of who is Harry, I'd sit there and be like, I don't know. And that's one of the issues I had, is that I didn't really have any sense of self. But that's quite a common theme with people at BPD. They lack a sense of self.
Okay.
But then I would have known that. It's small things like that, again, don't seem significant on their own, but they all add up. It's like the whole like death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. Is one small cut doesn't really do a lot, but when you have 1,000 of them, actually that quite hurts, to be honest with you. And again, similar to yourself, obviously growing up, I'm sure there are elements of like your overthinking, your anxiety that you probably felt made you feel a bit weird, a bit like almost like a bit of an outsider. But if somebody said, "Oh, by the way, maybe you think this way because of this," you would have turned around and be like, "Oh, maybe I'm not a problem. Maybe I'm just dealing with something, or I've experienced something that explains this."
Yeah, I actually think that I can really put most of my overthinking tendencies and people pleasing traits down to the fact that I think that when you're a kid and you see such a disjointed relationship between parents, you probably want to fix that and try and be the reason for them to be united and be like,
Which
no,
is horrible.
Oh, it's horrendous. So being in the middle of it and almost, dare I say it, sometimes being the subject or toy in between.
Yeah,
it's hard to say.
Bargaining chip almost.
Yeah, and I don't like saying that because I don't like to think of my parents using me in that way.
Maybe they didn't do it intentionally.
No, I don't think they would have. But I even situation I can actually recall now. It's coming through my head. When you were speaking about taking it back to how your dad was with his anger and his tendencies to sort of flip out, go high to low, whatever. My dad was very cool, calm and collected. But that's almost what I think riled my mum up, because sometimes when she was gunning for an argument because there was an issue, he would play it so cool. And obviously, as we all know, when you want to argue, you want someone to give it back to you. You don't want
peace, you want violence.
Let's have it out. And he would and I can do that now as well. I can be really almost like, it takes a lot for me to flip. When I flip, it's extreme. And I don't like that me, so I really do.
I get it.
I keep myself under wraps, honestly. And I'm thankful to this day. I don't really have much conflict, and I like to keep it that way. Again, because of what I've seen, I don't like conflict. I do anything to avoid it, and
I don't blame you.
Because in my head, I'm like, oh my god, that's chaos. That means life is what's the term? It's falling apart. Yeah, falling apart.
You were raised in chaos, so you want to avoid living the rest of your days out in chaos.
100%. Yeah,
which is hard, because sometimes when you're raised in chaos, all you know is chaos, and you become quite reactive and maybe hyper defensive, hyper reactive. It really depends.
See, then does this maybe explain why I might think maybe I thrive in stressful situations as well? Like I do my. Go on.
Well, I say it like this: is if you've grown up in a world where your life, all of the decisions you've had to make, all the big decisions that, to be frank with you, no disrespect here, that a kid should never have to make. You've had to make many decisions and have had to experience things no kid should ever have to experience, in my opinion. But the fact that all of these big decisions in your life have stemmed from a chaotic, I guess, background or environment or situation, that's kind of where you know best. You can perform well in chaos because you've only ever had to perform in chaos. It's what you know.
Yeah, it's that comfort aspect. As much as we want to try and avoid it, but actually we go back to what makes us feel comfortable deep down, and maybe that is kind of where I do feel most comfortable sometimes.
We get it a lot with people who've come out of toxic relationships, as they find it really hard to be in a healthy relationship or a stable relationship because they're so used to toxicity, and it's all they know. And if I said to you that the way you've been deadlifting is completely wrong, and then you try something different, you're going to revert back to what you know, despite it potentially being wrong. It's no different. It's what is comfortable to you because it's familiar. And we as humans typically aren't very good with change. We like familiarity and we like comfort, habit, and you've drilled a pattern, be that a motor pattern through movement, be that an emotional or relationship pattern through toxicity and previous times.
Yeah, no, you are right. It's just hard thinking back and almost actually coming to the realization that is the case now. But I mean, on that, do you? And I know we're sort of, jumping in and out of events in your life, but I think it's helpful to understand how it builds a picture. And
Yeah, I'd agree.
we can go down at some point, down the line, if we really delve into, more of your fitness journey and why it's become so important for you. But what led you to training? What led you to that? Because for me, as you know, and the reason I say this is because you're talking about chaos and stressful situations, but there are elements to me where I did want to escape it, and I actively did things to get out of it, even if it was for 2-3 hours a day. And that for me was training, because that was the only space where I could create the stress to my body. I was the one.
You
I
were
was
in
the
control.
Yes,
Control the chaos.
Those 3 hours. Yes, 3
peace.
hours. Yeah.
That's a light session for you now.
It's like not optimal, bro. But those 3 hours were they were my escape. But I knew deep down, I was like, it's okay, because whilst this is my time and I can cope here, that's enough for me to accept what I'm going back to. You know?
Yeah.
For you, sorry, carry on. But you were going to say something on the back of that, but
so it's a tricky one, because my initial similar thing is, I think when you're finding yourself as a teenager, you're trying to figure out where you fit in, where your friends are, what you need to do to live the life you want to live. And before training, I just used to do a bunch of drugs, to be honest with you. That's probably where my first kind of experience with drugs stemmed from, was where I was smoking weed all the time with my friends at 15. And then this is quite funny, actually. I went into, transitioning to 16, and I was going to leave school to go to a new school for sixth form or college, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this is my chance to redefine myself. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to be absolutely jacked. They're going to see me huge. I've just turned 16 years old. That's a February. School starts in September. So I've got 6 months to get. I'm going to be a pro. I'm going to be huge in 6 months. Obviously, I'm 16. I don't realize that. Wow. You're still trying many years down the line.
Yeah.
I went to my dad. I think 2 things came of this. One, I wanted to redefine myself, so I wanted to get bigger. Secondly, I think being a teenager, I wanted to appeal to women, to be frank with you.
Of course.
Growing up, I don't think any woman ever showed me interest. So I was like, maybe this will make people think I'm cool and attractive when I'm trying to just hide crippling insecurities. And I think the third one, my dad was big into training. I also just wanted to please him. I wanted to be accepted by him and be the son that I felt he could be proud of. So I went to him. I said, Dad, can you take me to the gym, please? And he was there like, random, but he's like, fine, go for it. And I went to the gym. Leander Rowing Club in Henley was the first gym I ever went to. Trained there, and he said to my mum, he's never coming back. He's a 16-year-old kid. He's never going to come back. I know he's not. Then I said to him, Dad, let's go again. And then it just kept going. It just kept going and going and going. And then I moved gyms, and he came to me to my new gym.
Yeah.
I started training with a friend, and then I kind of just separated from him.
Okay.
And it became a bit of like an autistic fixation. And like you said, it's an element of control there. I don't like not being in control.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't drink, or one of the big reasons I don't drink, is obviously seeing what Dad was like, and arguably Mum as well, and sister, but less extent. But also because I could be in control there, and I'm scared of losing control. If I drink, I'm going to lose control. And what happens if you lose control? Who knows? It's a scary thought, especially when you've seen what he would do when he drink. I didn't want to be a dad.
Yeah.
I didn't be my dad, I should say. And then just figured, there are many things in my life I can't control. I can't control how people treat me. I can't control how many things go, but what I can control is progress.
Yeah.
And I know that if I'm not progressing in the gym, I say that fitness is one of the few aspects of your life in which you can directly control the progress you make.
100%.
You can work really hard at work, at your job, but you're not guaranteed a promotion. Emotions are involved, bias is involved, recognition's involved. But if you work really hard in the gym, you are guaranteeing progress. If you're not seeing progress, the only person who can change that is you. Sleep better, eat better, train harder, do something better. If you're not getting there, what can you do differently? No one else. It doesn't matter how someone perceives you. Their perception and emotions towards you is irrelevant when it comes to your progression in the gym. That's why I just went with that.
And you've stuck with that, and you still maintain that mantra now.
It's almost like my place of peace.
Yeah.
It's an escape. I've had some awful days. Funnily enough, this is a bit of a tangent. I apologise.
There are no tangents on this, mate.
Especially
honestly.
with you. My first overdose was technically, because it was past 1 a.m., it was like well, past midnight. It was like 1 a.m. on November 1st. I overdosed. On the way home from the gym, I went through a massive spiral. It was triggered by an ex-girlfriend at the time. I found out some things that I was already in a very bad place mentally. I was not in a good place. I was on the fence. And I found out some things that really broke my heart. Genuinely just sent me into the spiral. I got home and just hammered a shed loads of pills I'd already had acquired from the dark web, because I was in the midst of addiction at that point. And I can't remember shit. I remember loosely being in hospital, I want to say 15 hours later, in a hospital bed, caked in self-harm scars, like blood everywhere. It was a mess. And I remember just hearing my dad say, I had no idea about any of this.
Really?
And because my mum had found me, I think I tried to crawl upstairs to bed. I think my now ex-girlfriend had called me at the time and was like, and I was passing out into my food because I'd hammered all these pills. I was a mess. I crawled upstairs to try and get to bed, and I just crashed. And my mum was like, what's that? She must have called the ambulance. I would hear that in the hospital. Now, I also remember a few hours later, a man saying to me, Harry, it's crisis team. They said, Harry, you've overdosed. Clearly, you're suicidal. We've heard that your mental health isn't good, that you've been contemplating this. We found some notes where you've said about some horrible feelings you're experiencing. We've seen the scarring on your body. And I remember my dad saying, don't project suicide onto my son. That's not his problem. That's not what's wrong. My son is fine. You're trying to push your own agenda. And I'm just monged out of my head. I can't remember shit. I just remember this loose conversation. And then I don't remember anything until I remember I came out of hospital, don't remember getting home. And as soon as I got back, I drove to the gym joint. I deadlifted because I competed in powerlifting a week later. And even on bad days, I didn't miss a session. I had to go.
That's mad. And again, there's no right or wrong, but I obviously I know some of these stories, but not to the extent you've gone into today. Now, you talk. So my mum, and thankfully, I don't know why it makes me tear up a bit. It's because I know the weight.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I get quite teary over things. I get quite insecure about being quite teary about things.
Yeah.
But again, you also have to remember I've said to you at the start of this episode, you are a man I want to be like. Yeah. If I could see you show emotion, you further enforce that's a man I want to be like. Yeah. And probably also a lot of men watching this, probably look at you and say, wow, that's a man I'd be proud to be.
It's the weight of it, mate. And it's because I've never been in that position. And, I wouldn't want to be. But I know that Mum's been at that point multiple times.
Bless her, yeah.
And I couldn't imagine life without her in that sense.
Of course.
And I just, to be able to get to a position where that is your way out, and that's the only thing you think's left. That's it. That's heavy. But it's also not to be. It's where your dad. That's why I was shaking, because in my head then, when your dad was obviously you overheard no, he's fine. He's no. Obviously, there is something that has pushed the individual to see that as their next step. Do not downplay that. Yeah. That might be the one thing that they think they can do and be happy with their decision. Yeah. No separate topic about assisted dying and things like that. I really am for it. I literally had
this conversation probably 3 days ago saying, I really hope it becomes legal in the future.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spend my last years wishing I was dead.
No. And to have the choice is such a big thing for anyone that's going through a certain situation in their life, albeit you probably horrid illnesses and things that have really caused a change. But to be in a position where you're choosing suicide as that next step to essentially escaping pain, escaping trauma, to feeling at ease, to feeling free. That's big for you to come out and admit, mate. And I know how that is, how big that is for you to do on like a platform like this. And I'm not saying this is a mega podcast, but just it is in my eyes. Just you saying that, I really do hope that people take away that it is you're entitled to feel any way you want to feel, and you
Absolutely.
should never feel shamed for feeling. I've been at points in my life, and I've never said this before, where I thought it must just be easier if I wasn't here. It would be easier for me to just pack it all in. And I don't think that. And then again, it wasn't. This was back when Mum had been diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
Instantly, I thought, oh, she's a fighter. With everything she's been through already with her bipolar, she'll be fine.
She'll push through, yeah.
Year later, after going through all of the chemo and, you know, losing the hair and all of this, I was like, yeah, she's a trooper. She's going to hit remission. She'll be fine. And then we got the re-diagnostics on the same day, the exact year apart. It was on like the 6th or 9th of December, 2016, and then 2017. They said it's not gone. We need to go through chemo again, and if that doesn't work, it will be a stem cell transplant. And after that, if that doesn't work, I'm afraid it will be
all the best sort of thing.
All the best type thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Geared up again. You as a family, you work up like that. Come on, Mum, you'll be fine. You've been through this, so it's going to be easier. It'll be, you know what's coming, that you can push through. And then I saw a complete change in her. Again, she pushed through, but I in those moments, I genuinely thought at some points, I was like, it's not fair watching someone, your loved one, go through so much pain in the hope of trying to cure something. I just thought to myself, this is horrendous to watch. So there were moments during that time I was at home, and obviously Mum at that point was in hospital for so long. I was practically living on my own.
Especially at such a young age, it's just you're not built for that. You're not taught to do that. You don't know how to.
Yeah, obviously, Dad being not present, he was obviously always at the end of a phone. But Mum and him weren't together at the time, so I didn't have a figure here at home with me. There were nights when I'd come home for a normal day for me, and I'm not. This isn't like a beg for people being like, oh,
of course.
My day would be, it's up early, walk the dog, make sure she's had some time out. That was literally it. That would be her only walk of the day. So long walk before work, go and do the full shift at work. Leave at 5:30, get to hospital every day. Over in that year, it would have been Wexham, and then potentially Oxford for the blood hospitals. Go to spend hours there just to see Mum, do anything she needs, potentially take members of the family, my nan, and then I'd drop them off, go and get my time at the gym. I'd be finishing at the gym when the leisure centre shut about maybe 11, half 11.
Yeah.
Go back, eat, and then the cycle would be probably take the dog out for another walk at midnight again, and then go do it all again. And it doesn't. Everyone could probably be like, "Oh, it's fine" and all that, but
it's not fine at all.
No, it was every day.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And I at points, I just thought to myself, I'm not hitting a weekend where I can socialise. I'm isolated. I didn't have a partner. I had no interest, and this was for someone that's at the age probably. I can't even remember what it was now. Maybe between the ages of 19 and 21. I wasn't going out and meeting people. I wasn't going out and socialising. I actually found it easier to decline invitations to go out. And there were points where I thought to myself, all you need now is for all of this to just end. It would be easier. If this is what life's going to be, it probably
I don't want
better.
anymore.
And I just, because there were points where I thought, how is my work day becoming my escape? I felt like I was escaping what was going on outside. It was so much chaos. But yeah, so it was just more to explain. Like I've never actually been at that point, but I know how big that is to admit that and talk about it. And I appreciate you for being so open about that, because it's not taken lightly. I haven't been at that point before, but I have often thought in those moments that life, if it's not going to get easier or it's not going to change, it would probably be best if this just all ended.
The thing is, it's one of the things, a couple of things there is, firstly, I think the one thing I'll always respect you for is, despite everything that was going on in your life at the time, you still turned up. You still showed up for not only the ones who needed you, but also for yourself. That's a prime example of 1,000 reasons not to go to the gym.
Yeah.
You still turned up. Yeah. And again, this is why I look at you and I look at your commitment to bodybuilding through prep and everything. I know you're always going to be okay. When you say you're starting prep, I know you're fine. I know you're not going to cock up. I know you're going to step on stage, look at the best you can do, because you've been through so much. The prep, although incredibly difficult at the time, is nothing compared to what you've been through in the past, having to obviously essentially be a parent to your parents and also try and be a kid, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So again, I have huge amounts of respect for you for that. Your work ethic is genuinely incredible. And again, another example of you being a man I would be proud to be.
I
And gone after you.
No, on the work ethic side, well, I model a lot of that off of what I've seen you do. So
I
I
appreciate that.
likewise, I
Thank you.
appreciate that, and I do model the way I'm going, especially into my next phase of life, off of how I've seen you do so. And
that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
But this is what I always say to you is your progression through this, not just this podcast, but coaching, is important for me. Like, it's important for me to see you do well. I care about you tremendously as a human. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you get there, I would be almost hurt if you didn't ask me for help. If I could help, I'd be hurt I couldn't provide it. And the second part of that is, I think with the mental health side of things, I think for so many years I was very ashamed. Again, if people have seen me at the gym in a tank top or even a t-shirt, my shoulders, arms, neck, even traps are caked in self-harm scars. Absolutely caked. I used to be so ashamed of them. I used to wear layer on layer on layer. And I got to the point where I said, actually, I just don't care. And the reason why I had a lot on my left arm, which I applied for the job in the police, and I tattooed over them to cover them. And then I was thinking that was also like a good opportunity to stop doing it. So I just went onto my other arm instead. It didn't actually change it. I just relocated. And again, I've got no shame in admitting these things, because ultimately, we've said before, if I can have the conversation, I can encourage the conversation, which means somebody listening to this turns around and says, you know, if Jake and Harry can talk about feeling that way or what they've gone through, maybe I can. And all it takes is that one conversation, that one message should be like, I resonate with that. I'm actually at this time, I don't want to be here right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about it. Maybe you'll be the first person they speak to about that. And again, I'd be lying if I said those thoughts still don't pop into my mind occasionally. I think an element of potentially maybe BPD is the inability to regulate emotions. I had a small emotional blip, like an episode will say, even 2-3 days ago. Okay. And I left the house. I went for a drive at 2 a.m. just to kind of get out of the way. And even in those moments, I was thinking the temptation and the sickening urge to harm myself, and the pondering of ending my own life, it consumes you like a plague.
Really,
out of nowhere. I hadn't had those thoughts for a good couple of months. Yeah, and suddenly, boom! It's just overwhelming to the point where it makes you almost feel sick. Like you have to do something about it. I didn't do anything about it, because that's why I got out of the house. I drove. Yeah, I cleared the kind of put you into a safer zone, we'll say. Yeah. But it still consumes. And again, I've got no shame in admitting anything like that, because quite frankly, it's like you've been through many things in your life, and ultimately it's defined you and helped you become who you are today. Yeah. And to be frank with you, if you hadn't gone through what you had gone through, I don't know if we would be this close, because I wouldn't respect you as much, because I don't think you'd be the man I can look up to, because I don't know who you would be. Yeah. And again, I think your behaviors are shaped by adversity and experience. And if you aren't willing, or if people aren't willing to just be authentic with themselves, this is what I've been through, but this is who I am now. What a hard life it is to live, where you're having to hide from the world around you. I agree. I do agree. Yeah, I felt like I was in that. Do you know what? I don't think I was I've always put on a bit of an act. I think I've actually started thinking about this recently. Yeah, I think I overdo it with people, because I've always wanted to be liked. I've always wanted people with me in life. I've always wanted that big family vibe. I've never wanted this idea of being. I didn't like the idea of being alone. Because there was those lonely moments in my life where that's where I thought, if this is what life is, then God, I can't do it. Yeah, I don't want to do it. So I think over the last few years, I've really been going through this phase of I need good people around me, good energy to just prop me up. And in order to do so, I need to make sure that I am the happiest, most eccentric, out there person that makes people laugh, is a bit foolish and a bit idiotic. Maybe that's just me. And in the hope that people gravitate towards that. And I've started to try and turn it off a bit and again, doing this is the real me now. Being more authentic. Yeah, I can cry. I can talk about subjects that I never could. I can talk about things that, maybe 40 years ago were deemed as something you wouldn't talk about as a man. You just crack on, do. You just stick with it, ride it out. That's what a man does. And that's not the type of man I am and will be. I really do hope that the next, or the generation of men growing up really do listen in on these conversations and acknowledge that there's no
set path for a man and a set path for a way we should be. You are entitled to be exactly how you want to be. If you want to show emotion, you show emotion. If you want to show signs of weakness, you show signs of weakness. So I feel like this podcast is a good journey for me. It's a good journey for people like yourself as well, where
Absolutely.
we can talk. But I'm gonna go on. Was you gonna?
I was going to say, it's one thing you've said there, which I find really hard, is the emotion.
Yeah.
I'm actually, to be frank with you, I'm actually quite a soppy guy, to be honest with you. I'm actually quite a soppy guy. But I'm
Really
incapable of, I feel so much shame and guilt if I were to ever cry in front of a person.
Really?
I think it stems from upbringing, but also I had a unhealthy relationship in the past many years ago, and I remember saying, if I ever saw you cry, I'm gone. That's men
that's
don't
what
cry.
they said to you.
It was worded differently, but it was very much, men, you don't cry. If I see you cry, I can't love a man who cries. And I was thinking, I cry in movies. And then I'll give you a prime example. I cried not that long ago. This is going to sound, I'm really soppy when it comes to animals. I can't do animals in pain. I can't do people abusing animals. It's probably one of the biggest things that will send me over the edge. And there's a cat on my estate. Love this cat. Don't know who the cat is. I thought it was a stray cat. Was going to adopt it. Turns out it's not stray. I cuddle it. I feed it all this good stuff. And then I remember seeing on the Facebook page, some teenagers had circulated a video, and it made it to the state Facebook page of them essentially abusing the cat. Where they were throwing it on the swing, spinning it around. It falls off the swing, impales into the ground, and I just burst out crying. I can't do it. And then I lost my shit. I go over to the cat's parents' house, we'll say, and I say, if you find out who did this, and you want to go confront the parents, tag me in. I'm not a violent guy by any means, but I'm confrontational. And if I see you piss around with an animal, my lord, we're gonna have some words. And it broke me. But the amount of shit I had to hide in the other room to cry. I can't let anyone see it. I cannot. And again, that's my failure. That's my flaw.
I think that the fact that you had to shield that part of yourself, that kind of breaks my heart a bit. I must say, I haven't been in many relationships at all. Like the one I am in now, I'm like, it's almost like pinch me perfect sometimes. Because
I see that.
It's not in the sense that we're the poster couple, but I'm just like, oh, this is someone that's understanding me all the time, and I understand you, and it's a nice, well, it's just a perfect combination of individuals. And where I drop, she props me up, and it's likewise, both ways. But I've never felt like I had to hide a part of myself. So it's sad to hear that, like, especially as bloke to bloke. I would hate to think if you turned around to me now and said you're still doing that, I would really implore you to try and not do that, because
it's I think when it's been so ingrained, it's always going to be hard for me to get away from that. Like if you came to me and you cried, I would see no ill of that.
Well, it's what we have on the podcast today. Like I don't see an issue with it. But
no, not at all. I encourage it, because again, it's if you could feel so comfortable to show that emotion to me, in that moment, I say, well, how can I be a better friend to you to make you feel safer? How can I make you feel supported? How can I make you feel heard, respected, and also just comforted? What can I do to make you feel like you're okay? And sometimes, again, if there is an emotional situation, I may not be able to fix the problem. What I can do is provide you a safe space to know, whatever happens here, you're going to be okay. I can't fix what's happening outside of things, but in this circle, you're safe. No one's going to hurt you. I'm here for you, sort of thing. But it's hard. It's a work in progress. It's definitely a work in progress. Again, it's a flaw of my own. That's something I'm working on in therapy, obviously. But it even stems down to like the mental health side of things. I've never been. It's weird. I encourage people to speak about things. I've always been quite open about things in the past. But when it's happening, people are oblivious. Even when, obviously, go back to the tangent of suicide, unfortunately, even in 2023, when I relapsed on a lot of the drugs I had addictive problems with, so opioids, benzos, I was hammering a lot of fentanyl, Xanax, things along those lines, hammered a shed load of those, again, in a very unfortunate relationship from both sides. There was no dig at my ex-partner. We were both shit to each other, to be frank with you. I took a knife to myself and I slit my wrist, for lack of a better term. And I got 13 stitches in the wrist, May 22nd, I believe, 2023. So yeah, I got 13 stitches in the wrist. And even then, my best friend at the time came over. I got arrested. I was taken to jail because obviously I had a knife. I used it against myself. She called the police to get me sectioned, to obviously get me taken away to a mental institution, or I say a psychological rehabilitation institution.
Yeah,
it's probably more like correct term.
Yeah.
And they just saw me with a knife and they just arrested me, took me into jail to the next day. Got out. She was gone. And then my friend came over, crying his eyes out. He came over. He sat with me and he just burst out crying. He said, "I've been your best friend for 10 years. I had no idea any of this was going on."
Oh.
And again, that's my failure and my flaw. I tell people to speak about their problems, but I'm probably one of the last people to reach out and say, "I'm actually having a bit of a tough time." But but once it's done, I'll speak about it so freely.
Yeah.
In the past, I've no drama speaking about anything. But in the moment, I don't really know how to, sort of thing. And it sounds really silly because it's a simple, just drop a message. But I almost don't process until it's done.
Yeah. And then you see how easy it was potentially to do that and how you feel after for doing so. And you're like, there is no barrier to that anymore. I can do that.
I think there's also an element of me at the time where I was in such a dark place with my mental health. I didn't actually want help. I wanted to go down that route. I wanted to do such an act and I didn't want help. I didn't want to be fixed. I didn't want to be protected or saved. I wanted to be left at peace to do what I wanted to do. Yeah.
But I hope you don't mind me asking.
Go wild.
Go wild. I love how we can take the comedic little setbacks to such serious. This is like our conversations anyway. Like, so yeah,
well, it's trust. I trust you more than most people in the world.
I appreciate that, mate, and likewise to you. It's what possesses an individual to self-harm, if you had to say, or what possessed you to do so?
It's a tricky one because I don't think there's a definitive blanket answer. There are two big things that really drove me towards it.
Yeah.
One, I'm really bad at regulating emotions.
Yeah.
And this, bless her again, I love my mum to bits. A lot of this stems from her. She can't regulate her emotions.
Okay.
So if I can't regulate emotions, I can't process emotions very well, and I get so overwhelmed by feeling emotions, but I don't know what's going on. What I can process pretty well is physical pain.
Yeah.
I can see the pain. I can see the blood, the wound, the stitches, things like I can see that. I don't need to think about what am I feeling. It's right in front of me. I've seen the mess. So I found it much easier to process physical pain versus emotional pain. The second thing is almost just, I think, hatred towards myself. I housed and sometimes when I do have these episodes, they used to be very frequent, where I'd have these the BPD episodes.
Yeah.
Where emotional dysregulation was going wild. They would happen multiple times a week. Now they happen loose, very minor ones every few months, who knows? But even in those moments, you get overwhelmed by a pure sense of hatred towards self, where, like, honestly, I feel sick with how much I hate myself in those moments. And I can't really even explain why, and a lot of it came into punishing myself. I hate myself, so I hurt myself.
So it's not that it's not focusing on a particular aspect of yourself or an event in your life.
It's just my whole being. I wish it didn't. It's just overwhelming hatred towards just self.
Yeah.
And it could be, maybe it stems from anger, upset, whatever it may be. But it's just, I think, overwhelming, like almost, like a term, like a darkness towards self, where you end up punishing yourself to almost like hurt yourself, basically.
And do you feel relief after doing so?
Oh, it's almost like there's an element of euphoria.
Okay.
You feel like almost a bit of peace.
Yeah.
And that's almost where it gets a little bit frightening, because you do it, it hurts, it feels horrible. In some extent, you feel nothing, which is a bit of a weird paradox. But then afterwards, you just feel, I've got out of my system now. I feel okay. I feel then you've got to deal with the aftermath, and you sit there and like, shit, how do I explain this? And it actually, for a while, you hide it. Then after a while, you turn around and say, I can't really hide this anymore, to be honest with you. Once I started harming more obvious places, like my neck, traps, etc., I was a bit like, ooh, I kind of can't really mask this too much now. Beforehand, I used to go, it's a cat scratch. I've seen a cat scratch. It's not a cat scratch at all, especially considering some of these are 20 years old. I started when I was 11 years old when I first started. 11? And they're still 11 when I first started self-harming. And they're still visible.
Okay.
So you can't hide.
Can't use the cat structure.
No, big cat. To be fair, very big cat, actually. Should see the other guy, so I'll say to people. But no, I actually, funny, I've had a guy come up to me in the gym, not the gym, but my old gym.
Yep.
Never seen this man before in my life, ever. I genuinely have never seen him. He came up to me and goes, "What are all those scars on your arm?" I said,
he straight up said that.
Straight up, out of nowhere, no other conversation. I said, "I used to cut myself when I got sad." His face dropped. Oh, my Lord. Don't ask stupid questions if you don't want a shitty answer.
Yeah.
And he just walked away. That's it.
So he had the balls to say such a thing. I'll skip, but then didn't want the after. Oh, no.
Yeah, people ask me, I'm going to tell them straight. I've got nothing to be afraid of. It sounds really silly, but once you develop a bit more sense of self and almost confidence in yourself, what's the worst thing someone's going to say to me? Oh, why do you do that? I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know.
It's kind of also good that you felt somewhat not empowered, but you felt comfortable enough to say that. You're like, yeah, I can say it.
It's just lack of care. And it's hard because sometimes I go to the supermarket, I go somewhere and I see maybe a woman, a man, whoever it may be, and I see on their arm they've got obvious self-harm scars. And I'm stood there in the supermarket welly up. Makes me sad because I think about, I know I've been there. I know how you must have felt, or a similar way to how you felt. And I want to go up to them and be like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. I remember years and years ago, I matched with a woman on Tinder. And I saw in her, the only reason I matched with her is because I saw self-harm scars. And I just sent her a message saying, look, I don't wish to overstep. I've seen the scars. I'm not trying to like proposition anything. I just want to let you know that I hope you're okay. And although I may not be interested in you romantically, because I don't know you, I'm always here if you need a chat. Because like you understand the kind of empathy when you see people sad. It's just because you can relate to it. It's like, well, I remember how I felt when I was doing that. How do you felt? But that's obviously often not well received because it comes across as maybe it's overstepping a boundary when there's no ill intent behind it. I just want to make sure you're okay.
That's what I think that from, obviously I can't talk on that side of things, but with the empathy that you clearly have for when you can acknowledge other people have gone through that, I have for other people when they just talk about heavy situations. Like I feel so much that I feel compelled to cry if they're showing signs of that as well. I'm like, I can feel the weight on your chest right now. And again, I try and talk in this podcast about, talking being a superpower, but I actually think the empathy side of things can be as well. You're actually in touch with the energy that someone's giving off. So
this is why I say to people, and people might say, I'm so sorry you did that. I'm so sorry you lived through that. I'm not sorry at all. I'm so, this sounds really weird. I said to a friend yesterday, I said, I think it's a privilege because in experiencing, before understanding mental health, I remember this and it breaks my heart to this day thinking about it. I must be 15 or 16. I didn't really understand mental health. I never heard the term anxiety until I was 19. And the PT from my gym at the time said, I've got really bad anxiety about the interview. I said, what's that? He goes, I get really nervous before things and sometimes I throw up. And I was like, that's me. I was like, shit, is that what it's called? I thought I was just a bit nervous.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really understand mental health growing up because I was never taught it. And I remember walking in on my mum on the kitchen table, just crying her eyes out, bawling. She was on a lot of antidepressants at the time, but she was going through a lot of stuff, financial troubles, family stuff. And I lost my shit at her. I flipped her. Why can't you just be happy? You've got nothing to be sad. I really had to go at her. Because I didn't understand. And I even what's this, 15 years on, I still got emotional thinking about it because what an asshole I was. Again, it wasn't intentional, it was lack of understanding.
You didn't know, yeah.
Exactly. But then that's why I say about the privileges. I'd now experienced a lot of things. So now I could turn around and say, well, if I hadn't experienced them, maybe I would still be that asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
And that you develop empathy through experience. I say one of the best teachers is experience. You see a thing. I've never broken my arm, touch wood. But I'm sure I can imagine break your arm must be really tough. But I will never understand how inconvenient it is when you can't brush your teeth properly, how painful it must be until I break my arm, which I hope I never do. But you don't fully know until you experience.
These are the events that make us and forge the individuals we are today. And as sad as it is, without these experiences you've been through, you wouldn't be the person you are today.
Vice versa.
And
yourself.
Exactly. And we wouldn't be doing the things we're doing. So as much as it's difficult to talk about, these are the right things to be doing. And again, just echoing, I know how heavy these situations and topics are for you, that you might not say it and be like, no, it's fine, but I can feel that they are heavy, so I appreciate you talking about them. I guess, we've delved very much today in, the background of Harry, your brand at the start, and then we've gone into your journey through, elements of your journey throughout childhood, your parentage, and, snippets of your relationships, past, and substance abuse, addiction, and, feelings of not wanting to be here, suicide, for want for a better term. And where, with all of that being spoken about and out in the air, obviously not everything to 100% detail, because it's just impossible to do that in an hour, hour and 20.
Of course.
Where are you today? Who is Harry today because of his past and his background? And are you still changing day by day? Are you still growing? Are you still learning about yourself? Are you still figuring new ways to deal with situations? Like, who are you today? And are you satisfied where you are in your journey, or your self-acceptance, if that makes sense?
It's a treat. I think sounds a bit weird. Funny enough, this actually came up in therapy last week. I think the Harry today is probably less likable than I used to be, because I don't try to wear a mask as much, where I'm not trying to become a chameleon to please all the people around me, to feel accepted and loved by everyone I interact with. I think I like to think I'm becoming a lot more authentic, which a lot of people actually don't like, because, for lack of a better term, the autistic element of it is I actually am quite blunt. I can be a bit of a sausage at times, but flip around as I'm a lot more emotionally open to things. I hopefully am better at listening to people's experiences and helping just provide a safe space for someone to kind of verbalize whatever they're dealing with. But I say that the Harry now is, like I say, is more authentic, is in a much better place mentally than I ever thought was possible. To be fair, like, if you actually want me to be blunt, is I had said this to my therapist: if things didn't get better by the time I was 30, I was going to kill myself. And I said that at September 2023. I said that to her, and and things did start getting better in my 30s. Funny enough.
Good.
And am I satisfied? I wouldn't say I'm satisfied. I'm much happier with how I am now versus how I was even just a year ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I hold a lot of shame and guilt over how I behaved previously. I've done a lot of wrong. I've behaved very inappropriately at times, very incorrectly at times. And like I said, I hold a lot of shame for that. And I still cock up to this day. I'm by far from a perfect man, but I'm getting better. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to be more responsible for my failures and my flaws. I'm trying to be more accountable. So, you know what? I cocked up. Funny, I had a conversation with an old friend of mine who I finally actually started TFNL with. You don't see him because you would have never met him. We'd separated before, back in 2016, and we had a really nasty falling out. And I bumped into him for the first time in 9 years yesterday. And I went up. He came actually up to me, which I appreciated. I was going to speak to him. I shook his hand. I said, "Look, we had a tough time. We had a really nasty falling out. I was an asshole. We both were, and I'm really sorry." And he said, "I was an asshole too. I'm sorry too." And it's just trying to be a bit more responsible, a bit more accountable, and say, you know what, I've done wrong. I've been wrong. I've been someone I can't be proud of, but I can't change the past. What I can do is change how I am now and change what happens in the future, or at least influence what happens in the future. So I said, I guess, to come back to the original question, is I think the Harry T is more authentic, more stable from a mental health perspective, but forever trying to do better, and is far from where I would like to be, but much better than I was a year ago.
It's growth, Harry. That's what it is. It's growth.
It's like with training.
It is. It's the same. It's the same scenario in a slightly different way in life. But I'm proud of you, and
thank you.
And I'm sure there are other people that are proud of you as well. I know we don't all need to hear that, but it's nice. Sometimes it's nice to know there are people out there that are proud of the steps you're taking, and I can see it as well. I can see that.
Okay, well, part of that is actually stemmed on by you. And again, as I said at the start, but I wouldn't say if it weren't true, but our relationship has actually grown quite a lot in the last, let's say, 6 months, 9 months. We've always gone quite well, but I think we've really actually developed a really good friendship. I consider you one of my closest friends, to be honest.
Yeah.
In these last 6 or 9 months. And again, I observe you. I speak to you. I see you with your partner, with your friends. And I look at all the things you do and also your authenticity. You said in the podcast episode, maybe a couple of episodes ago, about we spoke about your defensiveness, and it really hit me like, shit. I hate how defensive I am. But if Jake can be honest about it, maybe I can be honest with Jake about that. And I did.
Yeah.
I spoke to you about it, and now I'm a bit more open about that, saying actually I'm quite ashamed of how defensive I am, and it's not because I'm trying to be an arsehole. It's because I'm used to X amount of blame being pointed at me for no reason. My go-to is defend first, and in defense you get offensive.
Of course.
And it's because you're almost like a scared animal. You back them into a corner, they panic.
Yeah.
And so genuinely, a lot of that development, or how I look at, say, what I could do better, and which I take into therapy, I get from individuals like yourself. I get from individuals like Soren. Mandeep is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
I obviously don't have a present father figure right now, as we haven't spoken for a long time. But I look at the people I respect and look up to, like yourself, Soren, Mandeep, and I'm like, well, I'd love to learn and become a little bit more like all of these people, because if I could be more like them, that would have been a dad I would have been proud to have.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that.
No, thank you for saying that. And it's actually kind of hard for me to listen to that, because I don't feel like I'm fully there yet. And I don't think we ever, maybe never will be. But if hearing that I provide value in that sense to you and someone to look up to, it sounds weird me saying that because you're older than me.
I'm an old man.
It brings me an immense sense of comfort and overwhelming joy. So I do. It just makes me realise that the path I'm on now and the way I am good enough, and you are good enough.
So thank you.
But do you know what I mean? These interactions are like, okay, that's wicked. The fact that someone's had a takeaway from just the way I am, or the conversations that we have, and hopefully people with this as well. That's just it in life for me, honestly.
Well, without trying, you're making a difference. You didn't try to be like this. You didn't try to have that impact. Again, like some of the people I mentioned, Mandeep, for example, he doesn't try to be like that. It's who he is.
Yeah.
And in just being like yourself, just being who you are, actually makes a difference. And you're not even trying to. And to me, I think that's almost, I would say, a superpower, like you've mentioned before about talking is to make an impact on people without even trying to.
Yeah.
And you do that very successfully. And for that, I'm proud of you.
I really do appreciate that, mate. Again, this has been a very special, deep episode, which is exactly as I want them to be, and raw as well, and
authentic.
I want to delve into at some point down the line with you when we get together again. I want to talk more about your individual fitness journey.
That'd be
and
good.
How important that's been for you, and maybe future plans in life as well, and maybe also talking about how important it is for men like us to have something to delve into, have a passion, have a hobby, something else, have purpose. Yeah, something we're searching for, something we're working towards building. And you can tie that back to fitness as well, because we can both talk about that. So, yeah, that will be definitely topics for a couple more episodes down the line. If you'd like to come back on again,
I would honestly, it would be a privilege. I think not only do I want to see you do well, and I will, even if it's just providing some content, I would do whatever I can to help do, I guess, in any capacity, get you where you want to be, as I know you would to me. But also, I enjoy the opportunity to converse with someone I trust, somebody I feel safe talking to.
Yeah.
And flip around from the community aspect, especially with something so prevalent at the gym joint. Hopefully someone listening to this has a bit more confidence, or feels a little bit more comfortable coming up to maybe both of us or either one of us to say, can I have a quick chat? To which I'm sure you would say the same. Always got time.
100%. And many of these episodes I've said at the end, if something I've said has hit something inside you, then please just message me or come and talk to me in the gym. If it's local or on social media, just please reach out.
Of course.
So Harry, to end these episodes with guests, I try and do, and it's hard because I don't want to generalize them, but I try and have there's been so much to take away from this one, but if there's one thing, technique, something you could say to someone out there that's struggling right now, maybe regardless of what it is, how would you link that back to this? What would you ask? What would you say to them to do? What would you try and get them to feel comfortable doing?
I guess in maybe in a mental health perspective, I guess the two things that really reign true to me is, number one, life gets really difficult when you try and be somebody to please everybody else. Life gets much easier when you are just you. And the people who are going to be in your life and accept that are the people that deserve to be in your life. The people who aren't willing to accept who you are, your authentic you, are probably the people you won't care about in 5 years' time, and the boy won't care too much about you. Quality over quantity. The other thing I would say, something that I struck to a lot when I was feeling very suicidal, it's very easy to find reasons to kill yourself. Or I found it very easy to find reasons to kill yourself. But what's really important is trying to find a reason to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of finding purpose. What does purpose look like to you? Helping people, being the best bodybuilder you can be, supporting your family, whatever it is, find that purpose and stick to it.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that aspect. I think I did see something today about that as well. Like, I don't like to say that term. If it's easy, it's easier to die in that sense, but it's like, why don't we look at what we choose to live for instead?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I was just saying, I think that's an important message. Look at your life, and look at what you've got going on. Look at the people that value you in your life, and let's live for them. Let's live for the people that you can give back to, and live for the people that want you there. So yeah, I think that's an important message, Harry. Sorry, you were going to just finalize something.
When you're in the pit of sadness, wherever it may be, it's so easy to look for all the negativity, so easy to find the reasons to die. You don't care about the people around you. To be selfish and blunt, at the time, I could not give it a crap about whether people would miss me if I was gone. That wasn't even a consideration or a thought. If people said to you, "Oh, but people will miss you," I don't care. I'm not going to be here to deal with that because I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
But like I said, then you find reasons. Well, what would keep me here? What am I missing?
Yeah.
Why? I truly believe in many, many cases, maybe not all cases, there is a reason you feel the way you do. People say it's a chemical imbalance. There's a reason. Again, maybe in a few cases there might be a chemical imbalance. Obviously, with bipolar, there is definitely imbalances.
Yeah.
When looking at just generalized depression, there is usually a reason you feel a certain way. Work and find out that reason, and find that reason to stay around.
100%. Thank you very much for that final statement to finish a very, very deep conversation. I really do appreciate you coming on today, Harry. It's been a blast.
A pleasure and a privilege, always.
We will link up again in future. Anyone that's been listening, and again, please do. I assume Harry feels the same. Please do reach out to us if anything has struck a chord with you. You're not in this alone. This is a crazy life, and we need to unwrap it together. So,
agreed.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Harry, thank you for coming on, and
thank you for having me.
Plenty more conversations in the future.